In this series on dark academia, I've talked a lot about the process of dark academia. I've talked a lot about the retreat into isolation. I've talked a lot about the way that I think it is recommended that you go through death and then rebirth, as opposed to being this sort of underworld being, the mad scientist, as I have referred to it in this series. I've talked a lot about the need for dark academia. I've talked a lot about how it is something positive, not negative, something good, not bad. Though I think that dark academia is often wrapped up in that type of casing, that it is negative. You shouldn't disappear for a while. I've talked about the need to disappear for a while, but I've talked very little about the reasons why. And in this video, we will get a little bit into that. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in 2 playlists here on the channel, maybe 3, probably 3. I should make it 3. One, the poetry discussion playlist, which will be over 800 videos strong by the time this video is posted. Number 2, the Dark Academia playlist, talking about the ascetic and aesthetic of dark academia. And I should probably make a John Donne playlist on the channel, because I have talked about a lot of his poems. Now, the poem in question today is known as The Funeral, and it reads as such. Whoever comes to shroud me, do not harm, nor question much, that subtle wreath of hair which crowns my arm. The mystery, the sign, you must not touch, for 'tis my outward soul, viceroy to that, which then to heaven being gone, will leave this to control and keep these limbs her provinces from dissolution. For if the sinewy thread my brain lets fall through every part can tie those parts, and make me one of all, those hairs which upward grew, the strength and art have from a better brain, can better do it, except she meant that I, by this, should know my pain, as prisoners then are manacled, when they are condemned to die. Whatever she meant by it, bury it with me, for since I am love's martyr, it might breed idolatry, if into other hands these relics came, as 'twas humility, to afford to it all that a soul can do. So 'tis some bravery, that since you would have none of me, I bury some of you. So, in the dark academic sense, I think that what we have here is the individual entering dark academia, entering that type of isolation, entering the phase of life where he is constructing the person he wishes to be. I think that's the soul of dark academia, right? This is a funeral not for everything about this individual. This is a funeral for what it is about that individual he wishes to cast off. Dark academia, the act of retreating and rebuilding the self. Part of the aesthetic of dark academia is the aesthetic of the preparatory school, right? The very nice pressed khakis, the high collar shirt, maybe a vest, things like that. Like meant to, I think, almost mock the idea of education as a thing that is only embarked upon by the elites. Does the education do the elites embark upon the education, or do they become elite because of the education? The dark academic argument is that the process of becoming an elite, whatever that means to you, is something that is embarked upon. And the dark academics say that, hey, we can all be elite. We just have to do the work. What I've talked about very little in this series is a reason why. In this poem, we get a very large symbol from the speaker by this wreath of hair. It starts off as a bracelet, and it ends the poem as a manacle. I think that to do something so extreme as to close yourself off and attempt to become something else, attempt to become something more, is extreme. And it's something that not a lot of people have the wherewithal to do, for one. But number two, I think it's very hard for most people to get through something like that without a very big why. What was the quote from Nietzsche? If I know my why, I can endure anyhow. I think that's part of what is going on in this poem. The speaker has a why. The speaker has whoever it is that gave him that bracelet of hair that he wears around his wrist. And in order to really endure what it is, what it means to become something else, to become something more, it is very helpful to have a why. Now, for some of us, that might be so simple as the end goal itself. Maybe literature is your why. If you're here, probably literature plays a very big part of your life. Maybe that is enough. Maybe it's not. I think that if it's not, that is how people end up on what I have called the mad scientist journey. Someone who gets lost in the work, lost in the darkness. Our speaker here is saying that the bracelet of hair, the locket of hair he wears around his wrist, starts as a bracelet but ends as a manacle that condemns someone to death. If you have that why. For John Donne, there was a lot of tragedy in his life. John Donne knew the death of children, his own children. John Donne knew the death of people that he loved. That can serve as someone's why. And John Donne created a tome of literature that will live as long as English is spoken and perhaps beyond. Do you have a why? Do you have something that it is that drives you? Again, maybe that's just the mission. Maybe the cause of literature itself is enough. Maybe you're a writer and there are stories that live within you that you don't feel you have the tools to tell. So you have to retreat in order to build the type of individual, to build the type of tools that it takes to tell those stories. Maybe that's enough. I think for a lot of people, this why becomes other people. I think for a lot of people, there is perhaps someone who has passed or someone who still lives and depends on you. But you cannot give them the life that they deserve while you are in your current form. There is a great risk to something like dark academia, which is that you can retreat. You can lose years of your life working towards something and never get it. You can retreat and write something that never breathes life into anyone else. And that's a big risk, right? Because you get one shot at this. You get one opportunity to live. I gotta protect myself from going into Eminem's lyrics, but the idea that you can't, the danger of never succeeding, however, I think, cannot prohibit the act of trying. If you don't try at all, it is sure you won't become more. If you do not try at all, it is guaranteed that those stories that live in your head, that your idea of what literature is and should mean, whatever your mission is, it is guaranteed to never succeed. I think that there is solace to be taken in the idea that if you do retreat into dark academia and your missions are never heard writ large, imagine the person that you become because of it. The person that you become because of a retreat into the self is someone that can withstand much more than if you had not made that journey in the first place. I think that the idea of progress cannot be lost through the danger of never being fully realized. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, so consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. There's poetry every Monday, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.